Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to another beautiful game from the FIDE Rapid and Blitz Team Chess Championship in 2024. We have here Magnus Carlsen against Sumiya Bilguun from Mongolia. Sumiya Bilguun also of course a strong player. He's actually the 5th Grandmaster in Mongolia's history. But of course we see also that the rating gap between the two of them is really high. So Magnus was of course the top favorite to win their match. And we have to also mention Magnus became world champion again yesterday. With his team, he won this FIDE World Rapid and Blitz Chess Tournament. Congratulations again to Magnus and all of his teammates, of course. So let's see now this game. The reason why I'm showing this game is, first of all, you have requested now many times this game, and the second thing is that we'll see really an amazing strategic game in the London system, in the accelerated London system. And I think there is also a beautiful defensive pattern, a nice liberating line for black that I think will happen here. And I think for those, I think this is also an important game for those who have maybe problems, who have trouble to somehow face the London system. So that's why really a beautiful game, although it's a blitz game 3+2, but in my opinion still an amazing gameplay by both of them. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. Magnus opened with move d4 d5 by Sumiya Bilguun, bishop to f4 by Magnus Carlsen, the accelerated London system, and now after move knight to f6 with ideas to play knight to h5, chasing the bishop immediately. Magnus prevents this of course with e3, not allowing knight to h5 to happen. We have e6, knight to f3, and now bishop to d6. Sumiya Bilguun is immediately competing against his dark square bishop, but actually when we always watch the London system, actually white doesn't mind if the dark square bishops are off the board, because when we watch the pawn structure, you see black's light square bishop is always blocked out by its own pawns. White's dark square bishop is already outside of the pawn chain. So that's the huge difference in bishop's activity for white and for black. So even if white trades off now the dark square bishops off the board, white will always continue the game with the better bishop, which is of course controlling then these two diagonals. On the other hand, black will have a tough time with his own light square bishop in the game. So that's why you should always consider your bishop's activities in this really static, in this really immobile pawn structures in the center of the board. Actually, as I said, white doesn't care if black wants to trade off the dark square bishop, because here the dark square bishop is actually a good piece by black controls, like here maybe white's light square bishop, both of these diagonals. So we have here knight from b to d2 by Magnus, castling by Sumiya. Even if you try bishop to f4, then after e takes f4, c3, knight to e5 will happen. So white would continue then the game with a nice, really great grip around the square e5. This is now then the weak square. If white occupies the e5 square, then bishop to d3 could come, maybe even a kingside flank attack. So the position would be really fixed, cemented around the square e5. So after knight from b to d2, castling by Sumiya, we have c3 by Magnus. So builds now this common pawn structure in the accelerated or London system. Here we have now this really nice firm setup, and now white has to somehow develop the light square bishop maybe to e2, or if necessary maybe here to the square d3. We have now c5 by Sumiya, breaking the pawn structure here on the queen side. We have bishop to g3 by Magnus, queen to c7, and now knight to e5. Magnus cements now the position as usually, of course, in the London system, tries of course to fix the structure here with the move f4. So now the main idea is to get another grip around the square e5. We have now knight to c6 by Sumiya, f4 by Magnus, of course, b6, and you see now, although you could get an activity by your light square bishop, still it's always a little bit blocked out by its own pawn structure. On the other hand, you see Magnus light square bishop is much more powerful, activated on both of the sides. We have now bishop to b7, bishop to h4 by Magnus, and now Sumiya, I would even dare to say, plays the crucial positional inaccuracy in the game. He plays now the move knight to e8, and okay, this move is a preparation to play maybe f5, knight to f6, and then also from black's perspective to cement your own position around the square e4. But the better choice is to hop with your knight on e4, and that's what I've talked about in the beginning of the video. This is a very nice liberating line for black, because If you play now knight takes e4 here by white, then we have this one, d takes e4, and you pick up now the pawn on e4, but now white get challenged in this way. We play simply c takes d4. After e takes d4, the game is already lost. Look at this, knight to e5, you take out maybe this one, queen takes b7, you pick up this one, but first of all, we can play queen takes g2, and I think white is busted here. Even if you try here maybe after c takes d4 and knight to e5, if you try here f takes e5, then the problem is now we first play a bishop to b4 check, and then an intermediate check of course leads into a lost position for white, because you have to step back with your king somewhere, and then the bishop is lost here on e4. So that's why for knight to e4, white would be pretty much forced to play knight to e4, d takes e4, bishop to e4, and then after c takes d4, you have to play e takes d4, and now after knight to e5, f takes e5, we pick up now this one, and after something like e takes d6, queen to d6, here this is of course an opposite color bishop's endgame, in which black is pretty solid, has also great attacking chances. White is pretty much forced to castle here. So I would dare to say pretty equal position. The Stockfish engine evaluates this position as 0.0. So I think this is a very interesting liberating line to know for black in the London system. So when here bishop to h4 happened, has been played many times in chess history, but now you have the immediate opportunity to hop with your knight on e4. Sumiya Bilguun played now the unnecessary knight to e8. He wants first of all to prepare f5, as I mentioned, knight to f6, and then knight to e4, but it was really unnecessary to play this move, or you could have played knight to e4 in the first place. We have now queen to g4, the theoretical novelty by Magnus Carlsen, of course trying to put more pressure here on the g file. f5 by Sumiya, Magnus retreats, knight to f6, and now Magnus takes. Is not allowing any positional ideas here around the square e4. He's saying no, you're not fix your position around the square. Gives up now the Dashko bishop for the knight. We have now rook to f6, g4 by Magnus. Great move, opening up now here the g file. It's really good, because also there are several threats here, maybe around the square h7. If you take, of course, then queen to h7 immediate would happen. We have rook to h6. Sumiya competes against this unpleasant queen. Queen to g3, bishop to e5. After f takes e5, I would dare to say here white is much better, because it's a position that a London system player actually wants to get. The Dashko bishops are off the board, so the main piece by black, the main good piece by black, the Dashko bishop is now finally off the board, and white continues the game with a much better Lysko bishop than black's. So as I mentioned, black's Lysko bishop is simply neutralized, paralyzed by its own pawns. We have now f takes g4, queen to g4, rook to f8, h4 by Magnus. We have a6. Sumiya Bilguun builds now this queenside flank attack, but actually if you watch now this position harder, there's simply no way that black is going to break the position on the queen side. White has a nice grip here around the square d4, has many pawns that will simply trade off, and will still keep the position in the center blocked out. That's the most important thing to say. And here after move a6, Magnus is saying no, I'm not going to castle into your attack. Magnus played now beautiful king to e2. Great stuff by Magnus, securing the king. And actually when you watch now this position, the king is perfectly fine. Even if you compete here with c4, then we simply retreat, and there's simply no good way anymore to attack white's king, because the pawn structure is simply too blocked out now in the center of the board. We have now after king to e2, b5 by Sumiya Bilguun. Actually maybe a new unnecessary move, maybe better to get your knight here on e7, controlling maybe the f5 square, and if in any lines e4 happens, then you still control with your bishop the square e4. So maybe a little bit rushed here, this queenside flank attack. We have rook from a to f1 competing against this rook, and now after rook to f1, here I would say white is much better, has not the opportunity to include the knight into the game, then also the f7 square is weak. So good strategic game really by Magnus Carlsen. Queen to e7, now comes this idea, protecting the pawn but also preparing knight to g5. Knight to g5, b4, we have knight to g5, b takes c3, and now an intermediate counter attack here by Magnus attacking the queen. Sumiya Bilguun gives up now the queen for a rook and a knight, but here after b takes c3, the main issue for black is here, okay, maybe in some positions you could play with a rook and two minor pieces against the bishop and the queen, But the issue is that actually Magnus locked out now Sumiya's rook out of the game, because first of all, after move c4, bishop to c2, look at this, knight to e7, and now h5. Look at this, the rook doesn't have any good squares. The rook cannot escape Magnus' corner now, the rook here, and has now even the opportunity to get the king into the attack. Now there is a clear path for the king. The position is so blocked out, the position is so easy now to play for white that you can even include the king into the game. We have now bishop to c6, king to d2, king to f8. We have bishop to d1, protecting further this pawn, bishop to e8, queen to f4, and now after queen to g5, we have king to f7, and now Magnus goes for this path, king to b2, king to a3, and then maybe even get the king to the amazing square d6 here. Knight to f5 by Sumiya Bilguun, bishop to g4, knight to e7, and now Magnus goes, of course, with the king. King to a3, Sumiya prevents it with the knight to c6, is not allowing this king to get closer. But now Magnus finds another beautiful idea. He plays now the amazing e4. If you play here d takes e4, then d5 is going to happen, and the bishop it's endangered here. You cannot take because of bishop takes d7. Good opening move here by Magnus. We have knight to e7, now e takes d5, knight to d5, and now the queen is coming in an active way here into the game, attacks the bishop, bishop retreats, and now Magnus goes simply for this pawn. The game is really collapsing here for black. We have knight takes c3, Magnus takes, knight to b5, king to b4. Again, Magnus gets the king closer to the action. We have king to e7, Magnus attacks now the knight, but now Sumiya didn't find any better ideas. Magnus first of all delivered a check, played now bishop to h5, took also the knight, delivered a check, goes for this pawn, attacked now the position, and after queen to h5, king to d5, in this position Sumiya Bilguun resigns. So great game, great strategic game here really by Magnus Carlsen. Really interesting accelerated London system. But let's really go to this beginning of this opening, where maybe Sumiya Bilguun had this opportunity with knight to e4. Believe me or not, in this line white never won a game, so it's really a great opening idea for black. Unnecessary, as I said here, to go with knight to e8, preparing f5 and knight to e4. You can immediately hop with your knight, because the bishop always gets a little bit loose here around the square e4. There is now the tactical possibility to maybe grab something around the square. So great game by Magnus. Congratulations to Magnus and his team for winning the FIDE World Rapid and Blitz Team Chess Championship in 2024. We'll cover, of course, the next couple of tournaments. I think it was, again, beautiful to see Magnus Carlsen performing in an important tournament. So, okay, if you want to see some other games that we have analyzed from this event, check out our coverage. Here are some games that we have analyzed before. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos. And what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.